Hello, everyone. Have you ever felt that profound whisper, that insistent nudge telling you if you just wish hard enough, believe enough, God will grant it? What if that very belief, that faith in wishing, is not only fundamentally mistaken, but dangerously, terrifyingly so? What if the answers you've been praying for are leading you down a path far darker than any you've imagined? What if in your earnest desire for divine intervention, tonight we journey into a chilling narrative, a mythological exploration of the human heart's deepest longings and the spiritual forces that lurk in the shadows of our misguided devotion. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about prayer. This is not a sermon, but a mythic odyssey into the soul, where the line between answered prayer and spiritual peril blurs into a terrifying unknown. Let's dive. Elias was a man sculpted by ambition, fueled by an unshakable belief in his own destiny, a destiny he was certain was divinely ordained. From an outsider's perspective, his life was a testament to the power of unwavering faith. His business ventures flourished, his network of influence expanded like an unstoppable tide, and his public persona radiated an almost beatific serenity. He saw God as a benevolent sovereign ready to grant his petitions, provided they were delivered with enough conviction, enough faith. And indeed, his prayers, or rather his elaborate, fervent wishes, always seemed to be answered. A lucrative contract would materialize out of thin air, a rival would inexplicably withdraw, a desired outcome would manifest with uncanny precision. Elias attributed it all to his potent connection, his mastery of spiritual principles. He was a man blessed, or so he believed, a living embodiment of the verse, "Ask and it shall be given to you." Yet beneath the polished veneer of success, a subtle rot had begun to set in, a gnawing emptiness, a spiritual vacuum started to hollow him out from within. The joy from his accomplishments was fleeting, quickly replaced by a hunger for the next acquisition, the next victory. His relationships, once vibrant, now felt transactional, his loved ones becoming mere extensions of his grand narrative. He was surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. In the hushed solitude of his opulent penthouse, gazing at the sprawling cityscape that was his kingdom, a strange disquiet. It was a cold, alien presence, like a shadow at the periphery of his consciousness, a whisper that wasn't quite a thought, yet held an undeniable gravity. He dismissed it as the stress of success, a fleeting existential tremor. He would simply pray for more strength, more focus, more of what he believed he needed, and the feeling would recede, replaced by a renewed surge of energy. He was praying, yes, but to what? And for what? The line between genuine communion and self-serving demand had long since blurred, swallowed by the intoxicating allure of granted wishes. The first dream came quietly, almost innocuously. Elias found himself in a vast echoing hall, lined with pedestals, each bearing a shimmering, ethereal object, a symbol of one of his grandest achievements. The hall was lit by an unseen source, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like mocking spirits. As he walked, a strange melody, both beautiful and unsettling, filled the air, a melody woven from the hum of satisfied desire. He reached for a shimmering crown, a symbol of his recent corporate triumph, but as his fingers brushed it, the crown dissolved into a handful of dust, leaving behind a profound sense of loss, a weight of nothingness. He awoke with a jolt, the phantom dust clinging to his skin, the unsettling melody still echoing in his mind. He shook it off, attributing it to a late-night meal, a stressed mind. But the dreams persisted, each one growing bolder, more vivid, more unsettling. He'd walk through gilded cages, finding himself trapped by his own successes. He'd see faces of those he loved, their eyes hollowed, reflecting only his image, their voices replaced by the same unsettling melody. He was building an empire, brick by golden brick. But in the dreamscape, each brick was a piece of his soul. Slowly, the sensation was chilling, but the waking world was too intoxicating, too demanding of his faith and his prayers for more for him to pay heed. He was in too deep, riding the high of endless acquisition, convinced he was a vessel of divine favor, oblivious to the true nature of the force that was answering his every beck and call. His life became a golden cage. The wealth piled up, the accolades poured in, but the subtle rot had spread, consuming his inner landscape. He couldn't connect with his wife, who had become a distant silhouette in their grand estate. His children, once a source of genuine joy, now seemed to view him as an ATM, a provider of endless resources, but not a father. His joy had evaporated, replaced by a constant, gnawing hunger for the next acquisition, that he was chasing an illusion fueled by an insatiable thirst that no amount of success could quench. The world lauded him, but in the silence of his soul he was a pauper, spiritually bankrupt. The nightmares, once sporadic, became nightly occurrences, a recurring descent into a grotesque mirror of his waking life. He found himself wandering through a distorted reality, a landscape crafted from his own desires, but twisted, malignant. His gleaming corporate towers were now spiraling monuments of cold, unfeeling steel, casting shadows that stretched into infinity, devoid of warmth or human touch. The faces of his colleagues, once eager and ambitious, were now frozen masks, their eyes glazed over, reflecting only his image, a silent army of his own making, devoid of individual will. In one particularly harrowing dream, he stood before a vast crystalline lake. The water, he realized, was not water at all, but liquid ambition shimmering with the reflected light of countless desires. As he gazed into its depths, he saw not his reflection, but a monstrous, multi-limbed creature, its many hands grasping, pulling, consuming, its eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. He recoiled in horror, recognizing in its grotesque form the distorted essence of his own insatiable drive. A chilling realization struck him in that dream state. These weren't just nightmares. This was a realm, a spiritual dimension where his granted wishes were manifest, not as blessings, but as chains, each link forged from a selfish petition. He saw other souls, spectral figures, wandering this desolate landscape, each trapped within their own self-made prisons. A golden palace, that was actually a tomb, a crown of power that was a crushing weight, a river of pleasure that led only to— He wasn't just dreaming, he was visiting a truth he had desperately suppressed. It was in the midst of this deepening despair, this nightly torment, that the first glimmer of true light pierced the gloom. He was walking through a spectral marketplace in his dream, a bazaar of traded souls, where people bartered away their integrity for fleeting desires. Suddenly, the oppressive darkness seemed to ripple, and a figure emerged. It was tall, impossibly ancient, yet radiating a profound stillness, a quiet power that felt both alien and deeply familiar. This was no ordinary dream figure. Its form was fluid shifting, sometimes a robed elder with eyes like distant stars, sometimes a warrior etched in light, bearing a sword of pure truth. Elias felt a sudden, inexplicable awe, a terror not of fear. The figure, which he would later come to know as the Sentinel, spoke, not with words that resonated in his ears, but directly into the core of his being, a voice like the deepest chimes of creation. You seek to command the divine, Elias? But the divine does not take orders, it offers communion. Elias stumbled, the dream whirled around him momentarily wavering. Who are you? The Sentinel's gaze was like a laser dissecting his very soul. I am a watcher, and you, Elias, are being watched by another, one who delights in the echoes of misguided desire. The Sentinel's image began to fade, but its words lingered, etched in his consciousness. Beware the price of convenience. The path of true communion is not paved with wishes, but with surrender. Your soul cries out for liberation, not more chains of gold. Elias awoke with a gasp, the weight of the Sentinel's words pressing down on him. The encounter was too vivid, too profound to be dismissed as a mere dream. For the first time he felt a flicker of genuine fear, a fear not for his material empire, but for his very essence. Yet the allure of his current path was strong. The echo of desire, as the Sentinel had called it, still offered its seductive promises, still granted his wishes. Could he truly abandon a path that had brought him so much? He dismissed the Sentinel's warning as a trick of his mind, a fleeting weakness. He doubled down, praying even harder for strength, for conviction, for the ability to ignore these unsettling visions. He convinced himself it was a test, a spirit, but with each new wish granted, the cost became clearer. The echo of desire began to manifest more concretely in his waking life. Subtly at first, it wasn't a monstrous demon, not overtly evil. Instead, it presented itself as an almost benevolent, incredibly suave presence. Sometimes it was the sudden, undeniable intuition that guided him to the perfect deal. Other times it was the chillingly persuasive voice in his mind, whispering strategies, subtly manipulating situations in his favor. It felt like an extension of his own genius, a supercharged intellect, a spiritual ally. The echo was ancient, timeless, a being that thrived on the misdirection of human longing. It had no true form, but Elias perceived it as a being of profound. "You are truly a chosen one, Elias," the echo would subtly insinuate, its voice like warm velvet echoing in his thoughts during his most vulnerable moments. "Your will is powerful, your desires, righteous, continue to assert them. The divine hears your commands and responds." But beneath the honeyed words, Elias felt a growing chill. The echo always made him feel powerful, but also he noticed that the more he relied on the echo, the less he felt truly free. He was giving something up, but he couldn't quite grasp what. It felt like a part of his soul, a subtle erosion of his true self. He found himself increasingly unable to act without consulting this internal oracle, this whisperer of guaranteed success. His decisions were no longer his own, but echoes of the echo. His creativity waned, replaced by a calculated, almost mechanical efficiency. His spirit, once vibrant with the genuine pursuit of knowledge and connection, was now a barren wasteland, yielding only the fruits of the echo's carefully curated path. He tried to pray to God, truly pray from a place of genuine yearning for connection, not demand, but his words felt hollow, unheard, swallowed by a vast spiritual silence. The spiritual connection he once believed he possessed was gone, replaced by an echo chamber of his own desires, magnified and distorted by the entity that now held sway. He longed for the simple, profound peace of genuine communion. But the path was obscured, his voice lost in the din of his. This spiritual barrenness began to manifest in his waking life in terrifying ways. His insomnia became chronic, his once sharp mind now plagued by a restless anxiety he couldn't shake. The vibrant colors of the world seemed muted, the laughter of others distant and unreal. He moved through life like a ghost, his successes mocking him, each acquisition another nail in the coffin of his true self. A major crisis erupted, not one that could be solved by money or influence. His youngest daughter, a bright-spirited girl, was diagnosed with a rare aggressive illness. The doctors offered grim prognoses. For the first time in years, Elias was truly helpless. His vast wealth was useless, his connections meaningless. He tried to pray, to wish, to demand healing for his child, but the words caught in his throat. The echo of desire, which had always been so quick to respond to his ambitions, was silent. Or rather, it offered only insidious suggestions. "Focus on your legacy, Elias. This is a distraction. Let others handle it. You have more important work to do." It was a chilling revelation. The echo cared nothing for the true suffering of his heart, only for the perpetuation of his self-serving narrative. In that moment of utter despair, stripped of all his illusions of control, his spiritual dryness, the haunting emptiness became overwhelmingly real. He fell to his knees, not to demand, but to weep, to truly mourn the barrenness of his soul. In the darkest hour, when all earthly remedies had failed, and the seductive whispers of the echo had fallen silent regarding his daughter's plight, not in a dream but in a spiritual visitation that transcended the physical realm. Elias, consumed by grief and fear, found himself not in his penthouse, but once again in the spectral, nightmarish landscape that had haunted his sleep. Only this time the sentinel was a beacon, a radiant figure of pure, unwavering light, standing amidst the desolation of twisted desires. Its presence with Elias, the sentinel's voice resonated, a symphony of truth that shook the very foundations of the nightmare realm. "You have built a kingdom of shadows powered by the echo's deceit. But your daughter's suffering is not a distraction. It is a profound call, a crack in your gilded cage meant to shatter the illusion." Elias, broken and humbled, looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I am lost," he whispered, the words ragged raw. "My prayers are empty, my soul a desert." "Your prayers were never empty, Elias," the sentinel corrected gently, yet with an unwavering firmness. They were simply misdirected, aimed at a reflection, not the source. The echo thrives on self-will, on the desire to control, to command the divine, but true prayer is surrender. It is not bending God's will to yours, but aligning your will to His. The sentinel gestured towards a shimmering veil, barely perceptible in the desolate landscape. Beyond that veil lies the heart of the echo's domain. It is a vast ethereal wasteland, constructed from the shattered fragments of human desires, both granted and unfulfilled. It is where all misplaced faith finds its distorted manifestation. You must go there, Elias. You must confront the echo, not with demands, but with truth. How? Elias choked out. I have no strength left. Your strength lies not in what you grasp, but in what you release, the sentinel replied. Renounce the gifts of the echo. Release your hold on what you believed was yours. For only then can you reclaim what, with a deep breath that felt like the first true breath he had taken in years. Elias stood. The sentinel's light seemed to infuse him with a courage he hadn't known he possessed. He walked towards the shimmering veil, the oppressive atmosphere of the nightmare realm pressing in on him. This was it, the confrontation, the reckoning. He stepped through the veil, and the world twisted into an even more surreal landscape. Before him stretched an infinite, undulating plain, shimmering with the spectral glow of countless half-formed desires. Towers of glass, built from shattered dreams of fame, rose and fell like liquid shadows. Rivers of gold, born from avarice, flowed into vast, arid deserts, and at the heart of it all, a colossal, swirling vortex of light and shadow, was the echo of desire. It was immense, formless yet everywhere, its voice a chorus of 1,000 tempting whispers, each one echoing a longing, a craving, a hidden ambition. It knew his every weakness, his every secret desire. Welcome, Elias, the echo boomed, its voice resonating through his very bones, each syllable a caress of seductive power. You have served me well, your empire, your influence, your very— Why do you falter now? Your daughter needs you. Demand her healing. I can grant it, just as I have granted all your desires. Elias felt the familiar pull, the intoxicating lure of instant gratification. His mind raced, seeking a way to command, to bargain. But then the sentinel's words echoed in his heart. Your strength lies not in what you grasp, but in what you release. He looked at the swirling vortex, and suddenly he saw it for what it truly was. A parasite, feeding on his misplaced faith, growing fat on his self-centered prayers. You lie, Elias said, his voice trembling, but gaining strength with each word. The echo's whispers faltered, a ripple of unease passing through its vast form. You have given me nothing but gilded chains. You have promised fulfillment, but delivered only emptiness. My successes are hollow, my heart barren. You do not grant blessings. You distort truth. You do not answer prayer. You echo my own self, will back to me, amplified and corrupted. The echo recoiled, a shriek of indignation tearing through the realm. Foolish mortal, you reject power. You reject dominion. What pain? I seek truth, Elias declared, standing tall amidst the chaos. I seek true communion. I seek not to command, but to surrender, not to demand, but to align, not to wish, but to trust. He extended his hands, palms open, a gesture of profound release. I renounce every wish, every demand, every self-serving prayer I have ever offered through you. I release the wealth. Let it all be undone. Let it all fall away. My soul is not for sale, not for any price, not for any wish granted. As Elias spoke, a tremor shook the very fabric of the nightmare realm. The shimmering towers began to crack. The rivers of gold turned to dust. The echo of desire let out a guttural roar, a sound of pure agony and impotent rage. Its vast swirling form began to unravel, its seductive whispers dissolving into a cacophony of lost desires, a chorus of despair. The realm itself began to fracture, the illusions shattering like glass. Elias felt a profound lightness, a shedding of immense weight. The spiritual chains that had bound him for so long, links of gold and ambition, disintegrated. He felt vulnerable, exposed, but for the first time in years truly free. He was stripped of his material empire in that moment of spiritual confrontation, the vast wealth, the corporate successes, The carefully constructed persona fé all were now meaningless in the face of true spiritual liberation. The nightmare realm dissolved completely, and Elias found himself back in his penthouse, but the opulence now seemed his phone, which had constantly chimed with notifications of deals and market movements, was silent. News reports later confirmed the unraveling of his empire, a series of catastrophic market shifts and legal challenges that seemed to erase his legacy overnight. He had lost everything he had gained through the Echo's influence, but in its place he felt a nascent peace, a profound stillness he hadn't known exist. The gnawing emptiness was gone, replaced by a quiet strength, a fragile hope. His daughter, still battling her illness, was a stark reminder of the real struggles that money and influence could not solve. In that raw, exposed state, Elias began to learn what true prayer meant. It was not a formula, not a transaction, but a relationship. He no longer approached God with a list of demands. He prayed for understanding, for guidance, for the strength to endure, for his daughter's healing, yes, but always with the profound caveat, "Your will be done." This new prayer was difficult, often painful. It meant letting go of control, trusting in a wisdom far greater than his own, even when that wisdom seemed inscrutable. It meant accepting uncertainty, embracing humility. He spent countless hours by his daughter's bedside, not making wishes, but simply being present, offering love, reciting scripture not as a spell, but as a comfort, a whisper of hope in the face of despair. He found himself connecting with her on a level he never had before, sharing moments of profound intimacy, stripped of all pretense. The spiritual connection he had sought for so long, the one he had tried to force with his demands, now began to blossom in this fertile ground of surrender and vulnerability. He felt a quiet presence, a gentle embrace that was nothing like the seductive power of the Echo. It was the presence of a loving father, not a cosmic ATM. Elias slowly, painstakingly, began to rebuild his life not for himself. He no longer sought material gain, but spiritual truth. He devoted his time and what remained of his resources to helping others, understanding that true abundance came not from accumulation, but from giving. His story, though painful, became a testament to the transformative power of genuine faith. He shared his journey not with grand speeches, but with quiet conviction, a humble wisdom born of his own profound mistakes. He became a beacon for those lost in the labyrinth of self-serving prayers, offering guidance without lecturing, simply sharing the truth of his own hard-won experience. His daughter, against all odds, began to recover. It was a slow, arduous process, a testament to medical science, her own resilience, and the power of collective selfless prayer from a community Elias had learned to embrace. He understood that God's will wasn't always his will, but that God's love was always present, even in the struggle, especially in the surrender. Elias learned that faith is not a transaction, but a relationship of trust. Prayer is not a demand, but a communion of souls, a humble alignment with divine wisdom. The most dangerous way to pray is to confuse our own desires with God's will, to believe that our faith can manipulate the Almighty into serving our ambitions. For in that illusion, we invite not divine blessing, but the echoes of our own self, will amplified and distorted by forces that thrive on our spiritual blindness, forces that promise the world but deliver only an elaborate gilded cage. The journey of Elias reminds us that the true path to healing, to growth, to genuine connection, lies not in the loudest demands, but in the quietest surrender, in the willingness to say, "Not my will, but yours be done." It is in that profound act of humility that we truly open ourselves to the transformative power of God's grace and escape the dangerous trap of making wishes to God. That's all for today's video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.